Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, yesterday I went for the flu jab. Now, in English, jab simply means injection. So the flu jab was my vaccination for the flu, which I'm sure you all know can be quite a nasty disease if you catch it in winter. Once you reach age 50 in the UK, you're invited for everything. You get extra COVID injections, you're invited for flu injections, and a whole host of other things as well, such as cancer screenings, not to mention regular checkups with the doctor. So on email, I received my invitation to go for my flu injection. I tried to make a podcast when I was there, but actually we're not allowed to record these things. I think it's because of not only health and safety, but also because I might capture some confidential information about other people. Anyway, when I was walking to the flu jab center, yeah, they have their own place. Isn't that strange? When I was walking there, I met a man who was asking me for money. He came up to me in the street and he said, "All right, mate, do you have any coppers?" It sounded like something from an Oliver Twist book. Oliver Twist, written by, I think it was Charles Dickens. It sounded like some kind of Dickensian novel. "You got any coppers, mate?" And I don't know which year he thought this was, but I just replied no. He kept walking. We're seeing an increasing number of beggars on the streets now because supposedly people are much poorer than they were 10 years ago. I'm not so convinced. I think looking at the man, it looked like that perhaps he was looking for a drink of alcohol or maybe something else. I don't know, but I don't think it had anything to do with poverty. Anyway, when I got there for my flu jab, I got my injection, and then, of course, I had to wait and queue for a little while before I got it. Now, waiting and queuing is something British people do very well. We form orderly lines, and we're very happy to wait for everything. Even in the supermarkets, British people will happily stand there for hours if necessary. We may complain, and we may even use small talk in the queue. I went to the supermarket after that, and when I was standing there, the woman next to me tried to offer some small talk while we were waiting. And she said, "Oh, it's always like this, isn't it, standing here?" And I said, "Oh, really?" She said, "Oh, yeah, the queue just waits and waits, and the parson never comes. Look, they've told us they've opened the till, but no one's here." I said, "Yeah, well, it's typical, isn't it? Yeah. Wet morning, isn't it? Yeah. Always like this. Yeah." And it was kind of like this in the queue to get my flu jab as well. The only difference in the queue for the flu jab is, of course, we're all over 50, because that's when you're invited for a flu jab. Everyone was using their mobile phones. The woman in front of me, I could see her texting a message to her friends. "Oh, ridiculous. They told me to be here at 9 o'clock and now it's 9:05. I wonder how long I'll have to wait." And of course, one person turned to another and offered small talk. Oh, terrible, isn't it? Oh, yeah, awful, terrible. So I thought I would do the same. So I turned to the person next to me and I said, "Have you been waiting long?" And they said, "Yeah, it's always like this, isn't it? I was here last year for my flu jab. It was terrible. Always a queue." So to try to make light of the situation, I offered a little bit of positivity. I said, I used to come ice skating in here because the flu jab center used to be an ice rink. It was an ice rink. Then there was something wrong with the floor, so they had to close it down, and they converted the place into a gymnasium. Then it was the COVID center, and now it's a flu jab center. So I tried to kind of talk to them. And the person said, "Oh, really? Ice rink? Oh, I don't remember that." I said, "Oh, yeah, I was here in the 1980s, happily ice skating and, well, at one point breaking my arm on the ice." And we kind of laughed about it. So that made things a little bit easier while we were waiting. So we're all standing in this huge gymnasium, and they had those things which, I don't know how you describe them, those things which gymnasts use. It's like bars that go up the wall, which ironically I think are called wall bars. And then I could see it was also used as a basketball court because they had the baskets to put the ball in mounted onto the walls. So it was like a huge area which was empty, and then you get your flu injection, and then you're told to sit for 5 minutes, and then you leave. I don't actually mind it, but everyone tries small talk to ease the situation because none of us are very comfortable with needles. Even while I was approaching the front of the queue, there was a very large Caribbean nurse, and her job, of course, was just to make people feel a little bit easy. So she, of course, looked on the computer for our names and then stood with us while somebody became available. So she was standing next to me, and of course, she tried to offer small talk to make light of the situation. I mean, we're all standing there. They're running around 10 minutes late. And this Caribbean nurse, she was quite a large lady, and she turned to me, and she did what most British people do when they're feeling a little bit anxious, and that is she started to laugh. "Oh, hello, Joseph," or "You're waiting for your flu jab." And she kind of like cackled at me. It was nice, I suppose. It did lighten up the situation, but I just wanted to be out of there, you know? It's not the kind of place you go to make friends. Anyway, I got my injection, waited 5 minutes, and then left. Now, one really weird thing about any medical treatment you get in the UK, whether it's the flu jab or whether it's a COVID injection or something more serious, they always give you a leaflet. And they've got leaflets for absolutely everything. Now, for my flu injection, they gave me the injection and then they handed me a leaflet. And what's funny is that these leaflets always begin with the words, "Now that you have." Okay, so it's like a 4-page leaflet. It's like an A4 bit of paper turned sideways, folded in half, and it's usually quite colorful. And on the front, in big letters, "Now that you have," and it has the name of the disease they want to tell you about. So after I received my flu jab, my flu vaccination, Of course, they gave me a leaflet, now that you have had your flu jab, and I'm supposed to read it and see what the side effects might be, if there are any. And no matter what disease you have, they have one of these leaflets for everything, which is quite funny. In fact, during COVID, they produced one called Now That You Have COVID. And as soon as you have a diagnosis, they hand you this leaflet. Not only after a diagnosis, if they give you medicine of any kind, like the flu jab, there's always a leaflet, now that you have. I was at the hospital a few weeks ago, problems with my eye, and they put a chemical into the back of it. You know, they put drops in my eye and then told me to wait somewhere. And they handed me a leaflet, now that you have had this chemical in your eye. I can't remember the name of it, but it was on the leaflet. And it's the same for everything, yeah. And the funniest one I've ever had in this series of leaflets was when I turned 50. I was invited, because it seems that once you hit 50, that's the magic number. You're invited for everything. I say invited, I mean, they don't force us to have flu jabs or anything like that. But yeah, in the doctor's surgery, now that you've turned 50, ... you know, and you open it and it's what you can expect to be invited for. It's crazy. It's like your life's ended, you know. So anyway, standing in that flu jab waiting room, or I suppose I could say standing in the queue, because it wasn't really a room. It was more like a corridor we were all standing in. I just thought to myself, I just want to escape. And then I suddenly remembered that on October 31st is Harry Houdini's anniversary of death. Now, he died on October 31st, 1926. And if you don't know who Harry Houdini is, I'm sure you've heard of him. His name is kind of synonymous with escaping from anything. He was one of these people that they locked him in boxes and in chains and in everything else. And he was always able to escape. You know, they'd put him in a tank of water and he would be able to get out within seconds. He was a magician, basically, a master magician. His life is very interesting. So, yeah, well worth a read. In fact, the man who wrote Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, he loved Houdini so much that he was sure Houdini was using some kind of esoteric magic. But Houdini was actually just doing some straightforward magic tricks. There was no real skill. Well, I suppose there was a skill involved, but it was nothing esoteric. He simply was using very basic illusions. But Arthur Conan Doyle, he was sure that the magic Houdini was doing was real, perhaps from the spirit world. So Houdini and Arthur Conan Doyle were friends, and one day they went for dinner, and Houdini tried to explain to Arthur Conan Doyle how he did these tricks. He said, look, there's nothing magical, it's all illusion. And Arthur Conan Doyle was so disappointed and so upset by this that those two men never spoke again. Because Arthur Conan Doyle, as well as writing Sherlock Holmes, he really, really wanted to believe in ghosts. He set up the Psychic Society here. He did loads of things. He traveled up and down the country taking pictures, hoping to find evidence of the supernatural. I'm not sure what he actually found, but he also managed to debunk a lot of long-standing legends by showing to people that they weren't true. It's not because he set out to do that, it's just really because, well, in his journey to try to discover the supernatural, he found a lot of stuff that was just fake. Houdini, on the other hand, he actually set out to prove a lot of superstitions and religious miracles were completely fake. And he was very good at that, yes. And he spent his time visiting places and doing things, proving that things were done by illusion, not by magic. Anyway, it's all very interesting, isn't it, the life of Houdini? So I was standing in that queue thinking, oh, I wonder how I could escape. Anyway, Houdini's anniversary of death is coming up soon, so that'll be interesting. About Arthur Conan Doyle, I heard something recently about him, that he, after he died, insisted on being buried standing up. Yeah, he's buried in a very strange way. It's something to do with his hope of the afterlife. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, that's the story of Houdini. So that was my flu jab yesterday. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in future podcasts. If you are going to a doctor in the UK, do remember to look out for the leaflet now that you have ... after they diagnose you. They are very funny. I mean, they're not supposed to be funny, but it's just one of these weird, eccentric British things that we have. So that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and let's talk again soon. See you. Bye.